So here in California, we're more known for our hot and fast style of cooking, as opposed to places like Kansas City, Texas, or the North Carolina, where it's low and slow and smoky. In one particular area here in California, specifically the Santa Maria area, where tri-tip is king. Now, tri-tip is cooked a couple of different ways. You can either do it a slow and smoky way, or like I said, here in California, fast and hot. It's typically served up medium rare. Today, I'm going to show you how I like to cook it. First, with a little bit of smoke. Second, with some direct heat. Alright, so what we have here is an already trimmed tri-tip. So you can get these untrimmed and kind of do the work yourself as far as trimming up all the fat. Typically you'll see a lot of fat, like a huge fat cap on the back, and you kind of cut that off. And you can almost sometimes get them cheaper untrimmed as opposed to trimmed. So if you want some fat to maybe save for a sausage or a beef sausage or whatever, then go ahead and get it untrimmed and kind of clean it up yourself. But this one's already trimmed. So you can kind of see the grain of the meat going one direction and then the other going this direction here. So after we cook this tri-tip, it's going to be kind of hard to see which direction the meat grains are going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off a section that shows us which direction this grain is going, because you always want, when we're slicing it when cooked, always want to cut it against the grain. So if our grain is running this way, then we want to cut it this way. So let me show you. So just as a reference, I'm just going to cut a square end off of this. I don't want to cut too much because I don't want to lose too much meat. So a small little piece. And so this, when I go to cook it, I'll know that this flat end, the grain is running this way and I want to cut this way. It'll make the meat really tender when eating it. So the grain kind of changes directions from this way to a more slight subtle change this way. So I'll go ahead and make that same type of cut on this end of the tri-tip. Alright, so we have both ends cut. So you can see this end is kind of squared off, and then this end is kind of squared off. And it'll make it really easy after cooking it, knowing which direction to cut it in. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing ready for marinade. Alright, so to marinade, it's been kind of a trial and error type thing for me. You have to find what kind of marinades taste good to you. And I've tried a bunch of different types of marinade, and after serving this at a lot of parties, a lot of barbecues, I found something that a lot of people really like. So I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. So we're going to take our tri-tip and we're going to stick it in a Ziploc bag. Now this marinade, if you've seen my cooking a whole duck video in a barrel, you'll know that it was kind of inspired by that. A friend of mine turned me on to the whole cooking duck with Italian dressing. So I thought, what if I used Italian dressing as a marinade for our tri-tip? And it turned out really good. You guys got to give it a try for yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of our zesty Italian dressing, and I'm going to go ahead and squirt it into the bag. And then for a seasoning with our dressing, as you guys might know, I'm going to go ahead and use Rob's Trainwreck rub. So Rob doesn't sponsor me, he doesn't pay me for this. I just found this type of seasoning to give the best seasonings. Honestly, his barbecue sauces, his rubs, I really do enjoy. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to sprinkle some into the bag, and I'm going to let this thing marinate. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so we got our Rob's rub in there. See if I can show you. And there's really no measurement to this because it's just a marinade. We're going to close this bag up, squeeze some air out, and then give it a nice shake to let that Rob's rub kind of mix in with the Italian dressing and create a nice marinade for it. Can you guys see that? All right, so it's a really nice marinade. And we're gonna let this sit for a while. So I know it looks really sunny out here in California, but I kind of got a late start on this to cook it tonight for dinner. So what I'm gonna do is I like to let this sit for at least 10 hours. And I've ran out of time tonight, so I'm gonna let this sit overnight. The longer you give it, I'm sure the better it's gonna be. So we're gonna let this sit in the marinade in the fridge overnight, and then check back out with me tomorrow. So it's been really windy here in California for these past couple of days. So I was going to record yesterday, which would have been the 24 hours of this marinating, but the audio would have been horrible with the wind. So I went ahead and waited for today to take this out of the marinade. So it's been 2 days in here. This is the first time me marinating that for this long, but we'll go ahead and check it out. It smells really good, and it's got a lot of marinade on it. Let's go ahead and get this hooked up because we're going to put it in the barrel for a little while. Alright, so we've got my hook here. I'm going to hook it in the fattiest part of it. And we'll get this over to the barrel. I'm going to go ahead and add in a couple of chunks of mesquite. Mesquite gives off a really smoky flavor, and since our tri-tip isn't going to sit in here too long, I'm going to go with something that's strong. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and let this tri-tip hang in there. So we'll put it right about here. And what I wanted to add is that whenever cooking any type of beef, let it get to about room temperature before cooking it, because if you don't, the outside will cook, but the inside will still be really cold, and it'll just make for a difficult cook. So yeah, let it get to room temperature, pull it out of the fridge for about an hour or so, and then start cooking. I'm going to get this tri-tip to about 100 degrees internal, and then I'm going to pull it off, and we're going to sear it off on the Weber grill. Alright, so it's probably been about 20 minutes. We're going to go ahead and check the temperature of this thing. Tri-tips cook really quick, so since we're going to try and sear this off at 100 degrees, we've got to check it. So we're at about 95 degrees, so that's pretty close. About 95 degrees. Like I said, they cook quick. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get the Weber grill started. Alright, so this part's going to go fairly quick. So go ahead and throw it on there. And we're going to let this sear off to about 130, 135 degrees and pull it off and let it rest. Alright, so we're probing at about 130. So I'm going to go ahead and take this thing off and let it rest for about 15 minutes. Alright, so we've let this rest long enough, so I'm going to go ahead and cut right into it. Ooh, can you guys see that? Nice medium rare, exactly what I'm looking for. So the grains are running this way. Remember, we want to cut across them. That's why we made that little cut to begin with. You can cut them as thin or as thick as you'd like. I like cutting them about that thick there. But these are looking real good. I'm going to cut this piece off there. Let's go ahead and keep slicing. I'm going to try this piece here. It's so juicy. I mean, this tri-tip, Max, you don't get any, but this tri-tip took, I'd say, what, all of about 40 minutes to cook. And I mean, you can cook them to the way that you want. This is how I prefer to eat them.
but this is the way to go. Let's see what this end looks like. A nice medium on the thinner side of it. Let's cut a piece off this. That's looking pretty good. So I've marinated these things before for 8 hours. I'd say is the bare minimum to give it to marinade. I've never done one 2 days like I did this one. And I'd have to say it's pretty good. I highly recommend you guys give this a try. I mean, even if you don't like medium rare like I do, cook it up to medium. Medium's probably the furthest I'd go. That's California cooking for you. All right, so that's gonna do it for today's video. Like, subscribe, and let me know what you guys think. Until next time, peace.